I picked this song as a segue into my portion of the talk because I think it speaks very clearly to the work that we've been doing together in spiritual community for this whole month. And it's about coming together to learn how to forgive one another so that we can all be more beneficial in the world and we can all have a greater sense of well-being and essentially a happier life. So this idea of I don't know how to get there, but I know it's there, and I invite all of you to come along with me because it's when we all practice these things, you know what? We all benefit, and we're at home in midair. And I'm tying this into the opening piece by Dr. Fred Luskin because you know what? We're all in that great vulnerable mystery of life, aren't we? We're all in that place in midair with no feathers on our wings, in that vulnerability, because stuff happens. Stuff happens, and when we've got the capacity to hold on to those invisible strings of love, which is where forgiveness takes us, our entire life experience changes. You know, every time we pick a talk topic for a month, it seems like that's what outpictures in my life. Gotta be more careful. Gotta be more careful. I'm having a little trouble talking this morning, so right now I'm in a self-forgiveness mode. I have a migraine headache. My brain and my mouth are not working in sync, so please bless me and excuse me at the same time. This idea that we're all in this journey together, and that forgiveness is a thing that will sustain us through our vulnerabilities, that will move us into moving beyond our default setting of wanting to respond to our hurts and our pains and our disappointments from a place of anger or fear or revenge or hurting back, and instead go above and beyond that way of being in the world and step into a whole new way of being and seeing our experiences, the shift in perception that Glenda was talking about, that place where once we go through that door, we can go back and look, but we're never going to be comfortable going back through that door in the opposite direction, because once we know that love and forgiveness are the things that feed our soul when we're in pain, it is an option for us. We get to choose that. Our author calls it, we get to put that on our response menu. We get to make a choice to forgive, see? So that we can be at home in the play of the universe, the great dance of the universe. We can be at home there, even though we may suffer some pain, some loss, some confusion, some stuff, some icky stuff. Got any icky stuff going on? I do. So that we can let go and not make ourselves hostage to the experiences of our life, those difficult things, those divorces, those times of unkindness, those times of deep disappointment. I spoke about that last week with Zach. Those times of hurting. We can actually allow ourselves not to be a prisoner to all of that stuff in our life. So I'm going to read today from Emmett Fox, one of my favorite little books, The Sermon on the Mount. Those of you in 12-step probably having encountered this at some point, maybe early on in your recovery. But I like what he tells us about this idea, because he talks a lot about forgiveness in the Sermon on the Mount, because that was one of the main messages of the Christian teacher, Jesus. And he says, forgiving others means setting yourself free. Setting yourself free. Because resentment is really a form of attachment. It is a cosmic truth that it takes two to make a prisoner. The prisoner and the jailer. There is no such thing as being a prisoner on one's own account. When you hold a resentment against anyone, You are bound to that person by a cosmic link, a real, though mental, chain. You are tied to the thing that you resent. The one person, perhaps, in the whole world who has hurt you the most is the very one to whom you are attaching yourself by a hook that is stronger than steel. To be free, you must learn to cut these ties by a clear and spiritual act of forgiveness. The only thing that is essential is willingness to forgive. When you desire to forgive, the greater part of the work is already done. Wise words. Wise words. I really like this little book. We have it in the bookstore if you're interested. Simple read, great truths. But this idea that we can move on a place, we're coming into the Easter season, the rolling the rock away from the tomb, right? The opportunity to be in a different frame of mind with our life experiences so that we're not holding ourselves prisoner to the stuff of life. So that we can, Scott Peck, take the road less traveled. Forgive, let go. Now, does this mean that we don't feel our feelings? Absolutely not. All feelings are valid. The feeling is valid. The story that's driving the feelings might not be valid. You need to really examine that. But the feelings themselves are valid. And when we can have the courage to take that road less traveled, or to be vulnerable enough to fly in midair with featherless wings, as the lyrics say in the song, we move beyond the need to hurt back, to be angry, to hold a grudge, to hold a resentment. It's a lot easier to hold a grudge or a resentment, isn't it? It's a whole lot easier. Doesn't feel the same as forgiveness, as releasing, as allowing, as letting go. And when we make a choice to do this for ourselves, guess what happens? We are contagious to everyone else around us. Our forgiveness of our own stuff, ourselves, our own little pieces that aren't functioning real skillfully, when we can forgive ourselves and those that have offended us in one way or another, then we benefit the whole. We become the great example, like Jesus. We become the great example, and it's good for all of us. Our forgiveness is good for all of us. Every one of us stepping into a forgiveness around an issue benefits the greater whole. And so we started this talk back when, at the beginning of the Lenten season, this idea of stepping into seeing things in a new way, releasing what doesn't fit anymore. Feelings aren't really bad or good. They just are what they are. And most of the time when we're aware of them, these difficult feelings, they're unpleasant, aren't they? But the feeling itself, nobody causes our feelings, right? Feelings are ours, right? We get to choose how we deal with that. Nothing's inappropriate or negative unless we let it completely squash us, unless we let it take us over and be possessed by it, become a prisoner to that feeling. See, a lot of forgiveness work is around healing feelings. You know how that works? Our hurts and our wounds, and changing our perceptions. And so if we make a commitment to that, to work in that direction, to take that road less traveled, to think and act from a place of forgiveness as the response that we choose to bring forth in all of this icky stuff of our life experience, when we can do that, that's when we live our best life. That's when we have the opportunity to step into our wholeness, into the vitality of our own life experience, into this place of enthusiasm and joy and peace, this place of great love. So that we're not a victim to all that. We're not a prisoner to all the stuff that's happened in our life experience. That we have the willingness to forgive within that. And by the way, maintain healthy boundaries. That's always important. We get to maintain healthy boundaries. but we have this willingness to be an alert witness to whatever is going on, so that the story that we create about that does not become part of this prisoner experience. So what does it take? Well, you know what? For me, it takes a lot of practice. And I didn't do a very good job. My house is full of chaos all the time. And so today I have a migraine. And that's why I want to forgive myself, because there's a part of my practice that didn't sustain me through at least that. My body knows. My body knows it's under stress. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's a practice. It's a spiritual practice. And the practice is remembering the truth of my own divinity, remembering the truth of the other person's divinity, remembering that all this stuff that goes on is a grand, magnificent, dynamic dance of the universe. It's all the play of God in process. And this, whatever this thing is, wants to express through each and every one of us. Even though, I like the wording of the opening thing, that it's untidy, even though it might be kind of icky, even though it's random and it comes from nowhere, like Fred Luskin says, most of this stuff just happens without our permission. Even though that happens, and you know what? This is true for me, I bet it's true for you. We're never going to understand at this level why anything happens. Did you ever notice how that works? But we can remember the truth of it by seeing it as the play of the universe, by seeing it as part of the play of God in our life, and give up the hope that it can be any different than it is. It is what it is. And our invitation is to accept that thing right now as it is, on its own terms. Life on life's terms, in the present moment. Because if we don't do that, we might as well just lock ourselves up and become a prisoner of our own thoughts, a prisoner of our own unskillfulness. If we want to be restored and renewed, which is the message of the Easter story, if we want to have this resurrection at the deepest level of our soul, we must learn to forgive and to move beyond and let go of all the icky stuff that shows up. Otherwise, we're going to be held prisoner to that. Forgiveness becomes a yes to love. Forgiveness becomes a yes to love. It opens our hearts, and it lets us soar. Thank you for listening.